participate in Umkhonto Wesizwe Party. I am not going to speak here in Madikizela Mandela House as to what is the basis of that, because that will be tantamount to campaigning already for Umkhonto Wesizwe Party. So I'm going to be actively involved in Umkhonto Wesizwe Party and shape its direction and the politics that are obtaining today in South Africa. So that is to end the uncertainty or speculations that have been obtaining in terms of what is going to happen.
Well, EFF leader Julius Malema has described Shivambu's exit as unexpected. He's also assured his longtime friend and comrade of no animosity between them following his decision. Malema and Shivambu registered the EFF 11 years ago after they were both expelled from the ANC.
I stand before you to accept the decision of the Deputy President of the EFF, who has voluntarily resigned his positions and did not renew his membership. When he sent me a letter yesterday, I felt the same pain when I received the news of the passing away of my mother. Because Floyd, to me, is not just a comrade, he's a brother. And he will remain a brother even when he pursues his political career differently. But I've made this offer to Floyd, that the day you decide to come back, you are more than welcome. Because you are not a member, you are a founder of this political party. There will not be any replacement of the DP because we are going to the conference in December, so there's no need. But also, if you appoint anyone to be deputy president now, you are creating expectations. And when we arrive there, that person is not elected as president. You cause more problems now. So we are very fortunate, though unfortunate, that it happens on the eve of the conference. And the conference will be able to resolve that. I can't give a list of who's going to join MK after Floyd. I didn't know Floyd was going to join MK. So if I didn't know about Floyd, can you imagine about others? Because I'm more close to Floyd.
All right, let's stay with the story. Bring in our senior politics reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo, who joins us in studio. And in fact, Ziyanda, you were at that briefing. I want to just say that the analysts we had on shortly after the announcement by Floyd Shivambu gave us a sense that just given previous reports, Julius Malema's comments last year at the EFF's 10th birthday gala dinner, where he effectively warned Shivambu against conspiring against him, there have been several moments where it seemed like there was animosity, and our analysts telling us that there was no way Julius Malema was surprised by this announcement. You were in the room. What do you think?
No, that's not true. I disagree greatly with those analysts to the extent that Julius Malema was expecting an internal battle. I mean, I remember those comments from the 10th anniversary gala dinner where he was saying that those who are plotting against him, and I'm paraphrasing here, but those who plot against him will be dealt with harshly politically in the same way he's done throughout his political career. So it seemed like it was only going to be something that is internal. Looking at Julius Malema's face alone today, barring whatever our sources have also told us, he did not see this coming. And he even said in the briefing, because I asked that question, did you see it coming? He says, look, you know, if I was unaware of Floyd Shivambu's exit, I cannot even tell you who else might go, but yes, I am anticipating that others will follow because of their loyalties to the deputy presidents. And this was, of course, in line with the question I was asking regarding names such as Mbuyiseni Ndlozi that have been touted as possibly also going to jump ship, as well as Veronica Mentor. So, of course, he couldn't confirm that, and Floyd Shivambu not wanting to talk about the MK party, but certainly, you know, Julius was quite clear, Mr. Malema was clear about how they started this together and that this felt as painful as it was when he heard the news of losing his mother.
Yeah, I had goosebumps at that moment. And, you know, it's either that or he's a very good actor, but he certainly seemed, and I'm not a body language expert, but he seemed devastated. I would go as far as to say heartbroken. And yeah, he says the only other time he was this shocked and this devastated was when he received the news of his mother's passing.
Especially seeing that, you know, the irony here is that Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu left the ANC during when Zuma was the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa was the deputy president, and they were expelled. And they went on to form this in 2013. 11 years later, the same Floyd Shivambu is now leaving the movement that he started on the 26th of July 2013 to go work for the Ngcobo party, an organization founded by the very same Jacob Zuma. I mean, I've been calling around some of the leaders and I've been asking, what does former President Jacob Zuma tell you guys on the phone or when you go have tea in Nkandla that is so convincing that you would want to jump ship? And, you know, there's now this phrase after the exclusive interview that we did with him at Newzroom Afrika where he said there's a political something. Maybe there's something we are not understanding about the shift in politics. Look, there's already talk about this being a much larger plan ahead of 2029.
Not even 2026?
Even possibly 2026, but the bigger goal of 2029, where the progressive forces, which Floyd Shivambu was quoting that progressive forces charter on the stance of land expropriation without compensation, nationalizing the mines, etc. It seems that those parties are really putting their shoulders to the wheel. And actually, Mzwanele Manyi, who I don't think that would have been much of a surprise, given the fact that he was still the Jacob Zuma Foundation spokesperson, he too has now jumped ship.
And really, this is about just distribution of resources, as it were. That one thinks that if one goes to an organization like the MK, there's a lot more one can do there to complement the bigger picture. So I'm not lost to the progressive left. I'm not lost to the ideology that all of us share. It's just that where I will be in the MK party, there's going to be much more that one can do.
So he says he's not lost to the progressive caucus. And I wonder, Ziyanda, you know, there are so many questions that we should be discussing, but let's start here. I suppose one of the key questions now becomes, how far back do these discussions between Floyd Shivambu and the MK party go? And I'm referring here to the fact that he was deployed in the run-up to the May elections to KZN to try and drum up support for the EFF. And of course, he was relieved of that position, taken to the Eastern Cape.
Absolutely. And it's because, you know, there were always signs in the sense that, Michelle, at that manifesto launch, you know, there were many who said that manifesto launch at Moses Mabhida Stadium in February this year was a flop. It wasn't to the standard of the EFF. And then soon after that, Marshal Dlamini was then deployed to KwaZulu-Natal. And remember that they dropped significantly from around 9% to 2%. Now, there are many theories as to what happened there. You know, they shouldn't have let Vusi Khoza leave the party because he helped them gain that electoral outcome. And even Julius Malema himself saying at the National Results Operations Center that the MK party did do damage. Now, what I find curious is how Malema today was talking about how they are aware or they have suspicions of many people who are double parking in both the EFF and MK party. But what I don't think he was anticipating that it would be the man who's right next to him that's also possibly double parking. So that's why he was saying we're anticipating many others to leave. To go back to your question, so I mean, we did pose those questions. I mean, I'm very curious to know what was said to Floyd Shivambu in terms of his personal political career and what he is going to be mandated to do in the MK party that he couldn't do in the EFF. And the same question was asked about whether these ructions between Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu were a large part of him actually leaving the organization, given the fact that just now in December, the EFF is going to its People's Assembly, which is its elective conference. Does it mean that there's not enough space to grow within the organization? There are just so many questions that at this stage can only be answered by Nico Floyd Shivambu.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about the performance of the EFF in KZN, it's a massive drop from 9-point-something% to 2%. Hindsight is 20/20 vision, right? Everything that we're seeing unfolding from 12 o'clock today makes us look back and think certain thoughts. It also brings up the question, Ziyanda, when the EFF was cozying up to the MK party in the build-up to elections, was it perhaps overplaying and overestimating its own position in what may have been those talks? And the reason why I'm asking you that is the EFF now unhappy with its decision not to join the government of national unity?
Sure, that's a very interesting question. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, because for the longest time, there's been this view that's held that Julius Malema makes decisions unilaterally and everyone then has to follow suit around that. And there's also been a lot of sense that in the way in which the EFF conducted itself after the May 29th elections, that they actually played themselves and did not negotiate themselves into a good position. When you look at what's happened in Ekurhuleni and the talks and how Julius Malema was posturing after that, almost to say, well, we don't really need the ANC, and that our MMCs will resign in all councils if the ANC does not, return Nkululeko Dunga back as Ekurhuleni Finance MMC, for an example. And the thing is, the numbers after the 2024 general elections required all political parties to review their stance and what may have been hard lines, such as Action SA, for an example, in Johannesburg, and so it goes. I mean, who would have thought that in KwaZulu-Natal you'd have the ANC, IFP, DA, and NFP working together? But such was the outcome and what the voters actually required, of the political parties. And so there is a large sense that this is also the discontent with how Julius Malema has conducted himself in that aspect. So we will have to see whether or not there is another big grand plan. But what I've been told so far is that this is just the start, and that there may be others in other political parties who also might be jumping ship to join Umkhonto weSizwe.
Fascinating. 24 hours in politics is a lifetime,
Too
right?
long.
A week? What is that? I want to just reiterate some of the comments Julius Malema made, and it was obviously, I think the young people say, throwing shade. It was a commentary on Floyd Shivambu, right? He says, my coffin will be draped with the flag of the EFF. To resign from the EFF would be a betrayal of so many people who risked it all for the party. I assure the ground forces that I will never turn my back on you.
And it's interesting if you juxtapose that with what Floyd Shivambu says in his resignation letter, clearly knowing his longtime colleague, brother and friend, to say that, and I'm trying to quickly find it, I firmly believe that political decisions should never be personalized and treated as a betrayal of the cause and of individuals. You are my brother and comrade and will always I will always cherish the contributions we made in our lives during the struggle for economic emancipation. So I think they were playing a gentleman's dance here, and we're likely to see some of these comments. But I mean, it's not the first time Julius Malema has made, like you said, thrown shade or made veiled threats. And this now, like I was saying, we just never expected that it would reach this extent. Perhaps the tectonic shift would have happened internally within the EFF. But if Julius Malema is saying that some leaders in the top 6 structure were crying this morning, they didn't see it coming.
Is this the end or the beginning of the end of the EFF? And was part of his decision, Ziyanda, Floyd Shivambu, I mean, the fact that he's been in the wings, he's been deputy president, not president, for 11 years?
You know, this is an interesting question because it speaks to succession planning in political parties, not just in the EFF, but in political parties. Whether you're talking about the IFP, where Mangosuthu Buthelezi was there for about, 44 years or decades, whether you're talking about COPE and how that small party, we saw fists flying literally in the air and chairs flying in the air. Whether we talk about the ANC now, we're in a government of national unity and there are questions about what's going to happen in 2027 when Cyril Ramaphosa has to go. The issue of succession planning in political parties is something that's bedeviled a lot of our political parties on the South African landscape. And I'm mentioning that because there, you know, we're speaking off air. Was there never a plan when they started in 2013 that, okay, I'll be president for 2 terms and then, you know, you will take over, because you can't be deputy president forever. And that's why, you know, the emphasis, I think, from Julius Malema, he said it so many times, a personal political decision, almost wanting to isolate this from the organization and the inner workings of the organization, that, look, Floyd is making this decision and, you know, let him do what he needs to do, but also you can still come back if you would like to. So, you know, we don't know what the discussion was when they started this movement, but certainly there will be people who follow him.
What a fascinating year 2024 is turning out to be politically. Ziyanda Ngcobo, thanks for coming into studio. Great to get your perspective as someone who was in the room when Floyd Shivambu announced his resignation.